Most men think mental strength gets tested in war, in heartbreak, in bankruptcy. That's fantasy. Your mind isn't exposed when the world is on fire. It's exposed on a random Tuesday morning when nobody's watching and nothing dramatic is happening. That's where you fail. That's where you fold. Ordinary days at the battlefield, and most of you are walking around unarmed. You think you're strong because you survived something big once. You think one intense workout, one productive week, one emotional speech means you're disciplined. It doesn't. Mental strength isn't proven in chaos. It's proven in repetition, in boredom, in silence. When the alarm goes off and there's no emergency, no audience, no applause, just you and your decision. That's where your true rank is revealed. And here's where most of you get uncomfortable. You speak in tongues every single day. Not in some mystical, religious way. I'm talking about the private language inside your head. The voice you use when no one else can hear. That internal dialect determines your destiny. Weak men speak the language of excuses. I'm tired. I deserve a break. Tomorrow will be better. That's the tongue of the average, the dialect of the defeated. Strong men speak differently. Their internal language is ruthless. Get up. Execute. No negotiation. It's short. It's sharp. It's final. That's speaking in tongues at a high level. It's the transformation of your inner dialogue into a weapon. When your private voice becomes disciplined, your public life becomes dominant. You want to know why ordinary days destroy most men? Because there's no adrenaline, no drama, no crisis forcing action. It's just routine. And routine exposes your identity. If you need chaos to perform, you're weak. If you need motivation to move, you're weak. Real power is operating at peak level when nothing is happening. That's control. That's mental sovereignty. Your mind is a kingdom, and most of you let clowns run it. You let comfort vote on decisions. You let emotions sit on the throne. Then you wonder why your results are pathetic. The language in your head is undisciplined, so your life is undisciplined. Fix the tongue. Fix the man. Speaking in tongues at a higher level means you no longer sound like your old self. The insecure version of you wouldn't recognize the new internal voice. It's colder, more precise, less emotional. It doesn't care about how you feel. It cares about execution. That's an identity shift. That's transformation. You're not just changing habits. You're changing the voice that commands your habits. On ordinary days when the world is quiet and average men relax, that's when you apply pressure. That's when you sharpen the blade. You build discipline when there's no reward. You train your body when it's easier to sit. You study when it's easier to scroll. That's dominance, because dominance isn't loud. It's consistent. Most men talk about power like it's external. Money, cars, status, those are byproducts. The real flex is waking up and winning a day that didn't need to be won. The real flex is mastering your own thoughts. When your internal language is unbreakable, external problems become irrelevant. Storms don't shake mountains. You don't rise to the level of your ambition. You sink to the level of your self-talk. If your private voice is soft, your life will be soft. If your internal tongue negotiates, your results will negotiate. But if your mind speaks and commands, if it operates like a general issuing orders, your reality will align with that authority. Ordinary days are the filter. They separate the performers from the pretenders. Anybody can act strong when it's dramatic. Very few can be relentless when it's mundane. That's why most men stay average forever. They lose battles that don't look like battles. Everyone fantasizes about the big moment, the crisis, the chaos, the high-stakes scenario where they finally get to prove they're built different. That's ego talking. Real strength isn't revealed in dramatic situations. It's revealed on a quiet morning when the alarm rings and nothing urgent is demanding your attention. No one is watching. No one cares. No applause is coming. That's where you find out who you actually are. Most men only perform when they're forced to. Deadlines create effort. Public pressure creates discipline. Fear creates movement. Remove those triggers and they collapse into comfort. That's not strength. That's dependency. If you need chaos to activate your best self, you're not powerful, you're reactive. You're a machine waiting for a button to be pushed. Ordinary days strip away illusion. There's no adrenaline, no emergency, no external threat, just routine, just responsibility, just you and your decisions, and that's precisely why they matter. Because when nothing is urgent, everything becomes a choice. You either choose growth or you choose decay. There is no neutral. The average man wastes normal days because they don't feel important. He scrolls more, trains less, thinks about starting tomorrow. He convinces himself that productivity is reserved for intense periods. He saves his effort for moments that look impressive. But life isn't built on rare explosions of effort. It's built on quiet repetition. You don't become strong in the storm. The storm only reveals what you've built in calm weather. If your routine is weak, your reaction under pressure will be weaker. If you can't command yourself when it's easy, you will not command yourself when it's hard. Ordinary days are rehearsal, and most men rehearse mediocrity. Ask yourself this: who are you when nothing is demanding excellence from you? When there's no fear of consequence? When skipping the workout won't cost you immediately? When delaying your work won't be noticed today? That's the real test, because that version of you, the one in silence, is the one shaping your future. Strength is consistency without supervision, discipline without applause, execution without urgency. It's waking up and doing what needs to be done simply because it aligns with your standards. Not your mood, not your motivation, your standards. If you're relieving emotion, you'll only perform when emotion spikes. That means your output will be unstable, high one week, low the next, powerful in crisis, soft in comfort. That inconsistency is weakness disguised as potential. The powerful man is steady, calm, relentless. He doesn't need the world to burn for him to move. Ordinary days also expose your relationship with comfort. When life is calm, comfort whispers louder. Relax. You've done enough. It can wait. That voice grows stronger when there's no immediate penalty. But understand this: the cost is delayed, not deleted. Every relaxed decision compounds. Every postponed action accumulates. The future you are building doesn't care whether the day felt dramatic. It only cares whether you executed. This is why elite performers obsess over routine. Not because routine is glamorous, but because it's reliable. It eliminates negotiation. It reduces friction. It turns discipline into identity. When you win ordinary days repeatedly, excellence stops being an event and starts being your baseline. Anyone can push hard for a short period. Anyone can rise during visible pressure. Very few can maintain intensity in invisibility. That's the separation. That's the filter. The world is full of men who can sprint. It's starving for men who can march relentlessly. You don't need another crisis to prove your strength. You need another quiet day handled with precision. Wake up, train, work, improve, repeat, repeat. Not because you're inspired, not because it's dramatic, but because that's who you are. Ordinary days are not interruptions in your journey. They are the journey. You think your problem is money or opportunity or connections. It isn't. Your problem is the voice inside your head, the one that speaks when nobody else is around, the one that decides whether you move or stall. That private conversation is shaping your future more than any external factor ever will. Most men don't even realize they're being controlled by their own internal dialogue. They assume thoughts are random, harmless, background noise. They're not. That voice is issuing instructions all day long, and if the instructions are weak, your life will reflect it. Pay attention to the tone of your self-talk. Is it decisive or hesitant? Does it command or does it plead? Weak men negotiate with themselves. Maybe later. I'll try. Just 5 more minutes. That language creates a pattern of compromise. And compromise repeated daily becomes identity. Strong men don't negotiate internally. They decide. Get up. Do it. Finish. There's no debate. No emotional committee meeting. The command is given and the body follows. That level of mental authority doesn't happen by accident. It's built through awareness and discipline. Every time you tell yourself you're tired and you obey, you reinforce weakness. Every time you justify delay, you strengthen hesitation. Over time, your brain learns that your words carry no weight. You become someone who speaks without enforcing. And if your own mind doesn't respect your commands, why would the world? Your internal language determines your standards. If your self-talk is soft, your standards drop. You accept less from yourself. You tolerate mediocrity. You allow excuses to sound reasonable. But if your internal language is sharp and uncompromising, your standards rise automatically. You don't have to force discipline. It becomes the natural outcome of how you think. There's a brutal truth most people avoid. You are listening to yourself more than anyone else. That voice repeats thousands of times per day. If it's telling you that you're unlucky, behind, average, or incapable, those messages don't stay abstract. They become beliefs, and beliefs dictate behavior. Change the language and you shift the belief system. Shift the belief system and you alter your behavior. Alter your behavior and your results transform. It starts internally. Always. Most men speak to themselves like victims. They focus on obstacles, they replay failures, they magnify inconvenience. Their self-talk becomes a script of limitation. Then they wonder why they hesitate when opportunity appears, because deep down, their internal voice has already told them they're not built for it. High-level performers speak differently. Their internal voice doesn't dwell on feelings. It focuses on action. It doesn't dramatize discomfort. It minimizes it. Pain becomes temporary. Effort becomes expected. Discipline becomes non-negotiable. That mental framing creates resilience. You must become conscious of your internal vocabulary. Eliminate uncertainty from your speech. Replace I hope with I will. Replace I'll try with I execute. Replace I can't with I'll figure it out. Words are not decoration. They are programming. Speak weakly and you wire your brain for weakness. Speak with authority and you wire it for dominance. This isn't about fake confidence or empty affirmations. It's about alignment. If your goals are ambitious but your internal voice is doubtful, you're internally divided. An internal division guarantees external failure. Your mind must speak in alignment with the man you're trying to become. You cannot build a powerful life with a powerless internal dialogue. It's impossible. The tone you use with yourself must match the standards you claim to have. If you say you want discipline but your self-talk is emotional and hesitant, you are lying to yourself. Authority begins in private. The way you instruct yourself in silence sets the tone for how you operate in public. Control your language. Tighten your internal commands. Remove hesitation. When your words carry weight inside your own mind, your actions will follow without resistance. Boredom is where weak men unravel. Not pain, not pressure. Boredom. The silence between dramatic moments is where discipline either gets forged or forgotten. When the day feels predictable, when nothing exciting is happening, when the routine looks identical to yesterday, that's when your character is under inspection. Most men need stimulation to perform. They need urgency to activate. They need emotional spikes to feel alive. Remove the drama and they drift. They scroll. They delay. They look for entertainment. They call it taking a break, but it's decay in disguise. Discipline is not built when you're fired up. It's built when you're uninterested. When the task is repetitive. When the reward isn't immediate. When nobody is praising your effort. That's the environment where mental strength either compounds or collapses. Routine exposes truth. It strips away adrenaline and leaves you face to face with your standards. If your standard depends on excitement, you don't have discipline. You have mood-based productivity, and mood-based productivity is unreliable. It creates inconsistent results, inconsistent progress, and an inconsistent identity. The reason boredom feels uncomfortable is because it forces you to confront yourself without distraction. There's no rush masking your weakness, no external chaos forcing you to focus. It's just you, the task, and the choice to execute. That's why most men avoid it. Silence reveals the gaps. Elite performers understand something average men ignore. Repetition is power. The same workout, the same schedule, the same focus, over and over. It looks boring from the outside. It feels monotonous at times. But repetition builds precision. Precision builds mastery. Mastery builds dominance. You don't become dangerous through occasional intensity. You become dangerous through controlled consistency. The ability to execute the same disciplined behaviors regardless of how you feel is what separates leaders from followers. When boredom hits, the weak look for novelty. The strong look for refinement. Boredom is an opportunity to sharpen fundamentals, to tighten execution, to eliminate errors, to build endurance. It's not an enemy. It's a testing ground. If you can maintain high standards when the task is repetitive, you prove that your discipline is not emotional, it's structural. Most men sabotage themselves because they crave stimulation. They jump from one strategy to another, one goal to another, one routine to another. They mistake novelty for progress. In reality, they're avoiding the discomfort of repetition. And without repetition, there is no depth. Without depth, there is no authority. Routine also eliminates negotiation. When something is scheduled and repeated daily, it stops being a debate. It becomes automatic. That's the hidden advantage. Discipline becomes less about forcing yourself and more about honoring your system. Systems outperform willpower every time. If you can only perform when things are exciting, you will always be dependent on external conditions. That's fragile. Real power is self-generated. It doesn't require atmosphere. It doesn't require hype. It functions in silence. Look at your ordinary days, the predictable ones, the ones that feel slow. How do you behave? Do you maintain structure? Do you execute at the same standard, or do you loosen your grip because nothing major is happening? That subtle relaxation is the beginning of decline. Excellence is not dramatic, it's repetitive. It's showing up with the same intensity on a random Wednesday as you would on a critical deadline. It's training when nobody cares, studying when nobody is watching, improving when there's no applause. Boredom is not the absence of opportunity, it's the presence of choice. You either use it to build quiet strength, or you waste it chasing stimulation. The men who master repetition build foundations so strong that chaos cannot shake them. The men who avoid it stay trapped in cycles of starting and stopping. If you want stability, you must dominate monotony. If you want control, you must embrace repetition. If you want power, you must execute when it feels ordinary. That's where discipline stops being an act and becomes who you are. Motivation is unreliable. It's emotional. It's temporary. It shows up when it feels like it and disappears the moment things get uncomfortable. If you rely on motivation to move, you've already lost. Because feelings fluctuate. Identity does not. Most men wake up asking the wrong question. Do I feel like it today? That question alone exposes weakness. Feelings are unstable. They change with sleep, stress, weather, opinions, and minor inconveniences. If your actions depend on how you feel, your progress will be inconsistent by design. The real question is different. Who am I? That's where power begins. When you operate from identity instead of emotion, your behavior stops being optional. A disciplined man doesn't debate whether he trains. He trains because that's who he is. A focused man doesn't wonder if he should work hard. He works hard because anything less would violate his identity. Identity eliminates negotiation. When you see yourself as someone who executes, hesitation feels foreign. When you see yourself as controlled and precise, distractions feel beneath you. Your self-image becomes the standard you protect, and men will protect their identity harder than they chase motivation. Motivation creates bursts. Identity creates consistency. Motivation might push you for a week. Identity carries you for years. That's the difference between temporary progress and long-term dominance. Most men try to build habits without changing how they see themselves. They attempt new routines while still internally identifying as undisciplined. That internal conflict creates resistance. You cannot outperform your self-image for long. Eventually, you revert to who you believe you are. If you still see yourself as average, you will unconsciously sabotage exceptional behavior. If you see yourself as inconsistent, you will justify inconsistency. Your mind works to remain aligned with your identity. That alignment is powerful, but only if your identity is powerful. You must consciously construct the version of yourself you intend to become. Not in fantasy, in definition. Decide that you are precise. Decide that you are relentless. Decide that you are disciplined under all conditions. Then behave accordingly. Every action becomes a vote reinforcing that identity. This isn't about arrogance. It's about standards. High-performing men operate from internal certainty. They don't wait to feel ready. They move because readiness is irrelevant. Their identity demands action. The average man says, "I'm trying to be disciplined." That language is weak. It implies uncertainty. It implies that discipline is external and temporary. The powerful man says, "I am disciplined." The wording matters because it shapes perception, and perception shapes execution. When identity shifts, behavior follows naturally. You don't have to force yourself to act disciplined if you truly believe that discipline defines you. You don't have to constantly fight distraction if you see yourself as focused. The internal narrative drives external performance. Understand this clearly. Motivation is reactive. Identity is proactive. Motivation responds to circumstances. Identity dictates response regardless of circumstances. If you're serious about long-term strength, you must stop chasing emotional highs and start constructing a stable self-concept. Identity also influences tolerance. If you see yourself as high level, you will not tolerate low-level behavior from yourself. Skipping effort feels like betrayal. Cutting corners feels unacceptable. You don't need outside pressure because internal standards are sufficient. The men who rise over years, not weeks, are the ones who shift identity first. They stop seeing themselves as potential and start seeing themselves as responsible. responsible for output, responsible for growth, responsible for standards. You are not waiting to become disciplined. You are deciding to be disciplined. The moment identity changes, excuses lose power, doubt loses volume, hesitation weakens. Because now you're not acting out of temporary inspiration. You're acting in alignment with who you have chosen to be. Comfort is the most dangerous addiction on the planet because it doesn't look dangerous. It looks harmless. It feels deserved. It whispers instead of shouts. And that's exactly why it destroys potential quietly. Most men don't fail because of dramatic mistakes. They fail because of small comforts repeated daily, sleeping a little longer, skipping one workout, delaying one difficult task, choosing easy conversations instead of necessary ones. None of these decisions feel catastrophic in the moment. That's the trap. The damage is subtle, cumulative, and relentless. Comfort lowers standards without announcing it. You don't wake up one day weak. You drift there. You slowly negotiate your discipline down. You slowly accept less effort from yourself. You slowly replace intensity with convenience. Over time, the version of you that once aimed high becomes satisfied with average. The problem with comfort is that it feels justified. You tell yourself you worked hard yesterday. You tell yourself balance is important. You tell yourself you'll compensate tomorrow. But tomorrow arrives with the same temptation. And each time you choose ease over effort, you strengthen a pattern. Comfort conditions the mind to avoid friction. It teaches you to seek the path of least resistance. But growth is friction. Strength is friction. Progress requires tension. If you remove tension from your life, you remove the very force that shapes you into something formidable. Look at your decisions when no one is watching. Do you choose what is easy or what is necessary? That single distinction defines your trajectory. Necessary actions build capacity. Easy actions maintain mediocrity. Comfort also distorts perception. It convinces you that discomfort is danger, that challenge is something to escape, that struggle means something is wrong. In reality, discomfort is a signal of expansion. It's proof you're operating beyond your current limits. When you chase comfort, you stay confined within them. There's a reason high performers deliberately seek controlled discomfort. Cold mornings, intense training, difficult projects. They understand that voluntary hardship builds resilience. When you repeatedly expose yourself to challenge, your tolerance increases. What once felt difficult becomes baseline. But if you consistently choose ease, your tolerance shrinks. Minor inconvenience feels overwhelming. Small obstacles feel dramatic. You become fragile without realizing it. And fragility in a competitive world is a liability. Comfort also erodes ambition. When your daily life is optimized for convenience, urgency disappears. You stop pushing. You stop refining. You stop demanding more from yourself. You become satisfied with stability instead of striving for dominance. Most men are not defeated by external competition. They are defeated by internal relaxation. They become too comfortable to be dangerous, too entertained to be focused, too relaxed to be sharp. The uncomfortable truth is this: if you want exceptional results, your daily life cannot be built around comfort. It must be built around standards. Standards often require sacrifice. They demand energy. They demand consistency even when it's inconvenient. This doesn't mean living recklessly or ignoring recovery. It means rejecting unnecessary ease. It means recognizing when you're choosing comfort out of weakness rather than strategy. There's a difference between rest and avoidance. Powerful men know the difference. When you repeatedly choose what is necessary over what is comfortable, your identity strengthens. You begin to trust yourself. You know that when difficulty appears, you will not retreat. That internal confidence compounds. Comfort feels good in the moment. Discipline feels powerful over time. One creates temporary relief, the other creates long-term authority. If you build your life around ease, you'll wake up years from now wondering where your potential went. If you build it around controlled challenge, you will wake up hardened, capable, and ahead of the majority who chose to relax instead of rise. Most men think power is visible. Money, status, influence. They measure strength by what the world can see. That's surface-level thinking. Real power is invisible. It's the authority you hold over your own mind. If you cannot command your thoughts, you cannot command your life. Internal authority is the foundation of every external victory. Before you control outcomes, you must control impulses. Before you dominate markets, rooms, or opportunities, you must dominate distraction, doubt, and emotion. And that war is fought privately. Pay attention to how quickly your focus collapses. One notification, one negative comment, one inconvenience. If your state shifts instantly, you are not in control. You are being controlled by circumstances, by other people, by random stimuli. That is weakness masked as normal behavior. A man with internal authority decides a state. He does not allow small disruptions to dictate his mindset. He remains steady when others react, calm when others panic, focused when others scatter. That stability is not personality, it's training. Your mind must operate like a disciplined unit, not a chaotic crowd. Most people's thoughts run wild. One idea leads to anxiety, another triggers distraction, another triggers self-doubt. There is no filter, no command structure, just noise. Authority means you decide which thoughts stay and which are dismissed. You interrupt negativity immediately. You redirect attention deliberately. You refuse to entertain weakness internally. That level of mental control changes everything. When your internal dialogue is structured and decisive, hesitation decreases. Overthinking fades. You stop replaying scenarios endlessly. You stop asking for validation. You move, you execute, you correct if needed, but you do not stall. Most men confuse emotion with identity. They feel doubt and assume they are doubtful. They feel fear and assume they are incapable. Internal authority separates emotion from action. You can feel discomfort and still act with precision. You can acknowledge fear without obeying it. The powerful mind does not deny emotion. It contains it, it processes it, without surrendering direction. That containment creates consistency, and consistency builds reputation, first internally, then externally. Authority also means holding yourself accountable without external pressure. You do not need someone reminding you to work, train, or improve. Your standards are enforced from within. If you fall short, you correct it immediately. Not with guilt, not with excuses, with adjustment. Most people wait for consequences before changing behavior. Internal authority eliminates that delay. You see deviation early, and you fix it. That proactive control prevents small weaknesses from expanding into large failures. Consider how often people blame circumstances for their output, the weather, the environment, the mood, the schedule. These are excuses for lack of authority. When your mind is trained, external factors become secondary. You adapt instead of complain. Authority over your mind also sharpens focus. You decide what deserves attention and what does not. You eliminate low-value inputs. You protect your mental space aggressively because you understand that attention is currency, and you refuse to waste it. Without internal authority, ambition collapses under pressure. Goals remain ideas, plans remain unfinished. With internal authority, even ambitious objectives feel manageable because you trust your ability to stay disciplined long enough to reach them. Power begins in silence, in the way you regulate thoughts, in the way you respond to setbacks, in the way you maintain composure when others lose it. When your internal system is structured, decisive, and controlled, your external presence reflects that stability. The world respects men who are unshakable. But unshakable does not begin in public. It begins in the private moments when you choose focus over distraction, discipline over impulse, clarity over chaos. Control your mind with precision, and everything else becomes a matter of execution. So here's the truth you don't want to hear. Your mental strength isn't lacking because life is hard. It's lacking because you're soft and private. Change the voice. Harden the language. Speak to yourself like a commander, not a victim. Build power in silence. Dominate in routine. Win the invisible days. Because if you can't conquer a normal day, you'll never conquer an extraordinary one. And the world doesn't reward potential. It rewards control. Decide who speaks inside your head. Decide the language of your mind. Then enforce it without mercy.